Okay. Are we on? Oh. Good evening. Oh, well, that one hit. So good evening. My name is Tom McNair. I'm the executive director of Ohio City Incorporated, and I would like to welcome you all to our monthly community meeting tonight. So a couple of things before we go ahead and get started, as a matter of some kind of housekeeping stuff. So one, our board, kind of worked with us on creating these meetings as a part of our justice, equity, and diversity and inclusion work, right? Part of them are to foster transparency, so these meetings are live streamed and recorded and available after use. Always, we're so grateful for all of you coming out tonight, so we always have food for people who are here. If you're gonna come spend your time with us, we wanna be able to have you breaking bread with your neighbors. It is important to us. We also offer childcare, so don't ever feel like you can't come here. Because you've got little ones in tow, right? We want them too, and they can be taken care of while you learn about things that are going on. We do offer transportation from our CMHA properties as well as Fairview Gardens as a way to ensure that people have access to get to these places. And then also, I would like to say, we have with us somewhere I see Priscilla Roca. Priscilla is now a former Ohio City Incorporated board member. She just stepped off after 4 years on the board. Boy, been with us for a while. But I want to thank Priscilla for her time on the board. She has been a committed board member who has done a lot for our organization. She is stepping off because she is going to serve the city of Cleveland on the Board of Zoning Appeals, so we're excited for her as she continues that work, but grateful for her time with us. So thank you, Priscilla, for your years of service. As you know, that does also mean there is now going to be another resident elected board seat that is available on our organization. So Gigi Benjamin, our board member, I know she is here somewhere. Hi, Gigi, is the chair of our governance committee. So we'll be starting the process. I believe Priscilla's term would have ended in 2024, right? So there's a little bit of time left on that. So there will be a special election that is held for that. We will make sure that we work with everyone to get all the information out on that. And then lastly, I know we've tried to make sure that we got the word out through as many different ways as humanly possible. We were really excited to have with us tonight Jessica Traversano, who is the mayor's senior strategist on all things West Side Market. And Jessica came down with COVID and let us know on Sunday, probably not the best place to be at a community meeting as she works through that. So she is going to rejoin us here in October as a way to share everything that the mayor and the administration are doing in that transition to a nonprofit management structure, so that everyone here understands the process and finds out different ways that they can get involved. And lastly, as I said, we thought these would be a great opportunity to share not just things that others are doing in the community, but also talk a little bit about the work that Ohio City Incorporated is doing as well. And so I guess to kick things off real briefly, something that we have been in the works a little bit with Councilman McCormack. I'll introduce Katie Bomback, our Director of Marketing. Oh, and last housekeeping piece, right? When we go to Q&A after each one of these things, always feel, there's a microphone over here. You'll come stand up to that, smile, you're on camera, right, for everyone to see at home, and ask your questions clearly into the microphone, because while it's easy for us to hear and hear, right, unless you're speaking into the microphone, you won't be able to catch it on the live stream. So with that, again, Katie Bomback, Director of Marketing.
So slow. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Bomback, Director of Marketing for Ohio City and Tremont through the Near West Partners Program. And I just want to give you a quick update. This is very, very kind of nebulous at this point and in the works, but Councilman McCormack approached us to start thinking about the next year and actually 3 years, and kind of working in a 3-year plan for providing additional community engagement opportunities where we provide free enrichment programming for the neighborhood. Some great examples of that, and this would be across the entire Near West Side. So we're looking at working with Tremont and kind of almost like the Near West Track model, providing additional opportunities for community members of all income and ability levels to be able to participate in activities in the neighborhood. So think of things like Arts in August in Tremont, and then like the city stages and things like that, and how we can grow them across the neighborhood and make them more accessible and make them more year-round. And we're going to be working with Councilman McCormick to secure some additional funding through sponsorship and city funds. So we're kind of trying to figure out what everyone's looking for and what they'd like to see in the neighborhood. And we're getting ready to send out a more formalized survey, but if you have anything you kind of want to throw on, we have a board in the back. And if you're viewing in via live stream, you can tweet at us, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, and let us know what you're looking to see in the neighborhood. And then we'll be sending it out as part of our weekly newsletter and posting it on all our social channels about how you can give us feedback on what you're looking for. So whether it's additional arts programming in the neighborhood, or having classes of some sort, or salsa dancing lessons, or yoga, or things like that. We're looking to provide these things for free for the community, and more on like a neighborhood basis as opposed to drawing people to the neighborhood. We really want to make people who live here enjoy it and get additional enrichment from living here. So that's just kind of my quick spiel on it. Like I said, it's still very in the early stages, but we're really hoping to launch it next year. So we're going to be kind of aggressive about surveying and then sharing our results and then putting that plan together and moving forward in 2023. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're in the room, we have an easel in the back and some sticky notes. So feel free to just throw on there what you're looking for, and we'll try to get it into the formalized survey and get it going in the neighborhood. So we're excited about that. And thanks to Councilman McCormick for working with us on that, because it's definitely something that is he's been kind of thinking about for a really long time, and we're excited to collaborate. So with that, I think we have our first guest presenter. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Michael Bush of Imposters Theater. So if Michael wants to come up and join us, there he is. Come on up.
Thank you. Hello, hi everyone. Hello, hi again. I'm Michael Bush. Thanks for having me here, Ohio City Inc. and everyone. Happy to talk to you all. And so again, my name is Michael Bush, and there's a slide. All right, so I am the founder and creative director of Imposters Theater, and we are Cleveland's home for improv, sketch, and alternative comedy. And we recently leased a space pretty much across the street at 4828 Lorraine. And so I'm happy to come here and talk to you a little bit about what we do and how we're going to contribute to the community. First off, there's me. All right, great. Now, who do I think I am? Again, my name is Michael Bush, and I grew up in Mentor over on the east side. I went to Ohio University, and after that, I moved out to Los Angeles, where I went through the improv program at Iowa West. I studied with Matt Besser and Matt Walsh at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, and I spent 15 years in Los Angeles in the comedy scene, where I was a main stage performer at UCB and Iowa West, did some commercials, little TV roles, and some freelance producing work out there. And I moved back to Cleveland about 4.5 years ago, and I started teaching some classes and putting on some shows, and now we've built up to opening a little comedy theater. What we do, first off, entertainment. We have improv shows, we have sketch comedy shows, and we have alternative comedy shows. We'll have some variety shows, some fun, high concept type shows, improv, sketch, musical comedy, pretty much running the gamut. And we also have education. And we teach classes in improv, comedy writing, performance, things like that. And here's some of our classes right now. We have a joke writing workshop. We have an improv workshop for anyone that just wants to try improv, as well as our comedy, improv and comedy writing levels of classes. What do we bring to your neighborhood? We are a destination business. In addition to hopefully you all coming to our shows, we'll also bring people in that will also benefit the local bars, restaurants in the area. And we have classes and shows found nowhere else. I teach a lot of the classes. Also, Ryan Santa, who's right over here, who's also one of your neighbors, is one of our instructors. By the way, I invited some of our members of our community here that live in the neighborhood, so you can say hi to them afterward. They're very nice people, and they won't hurt you. And we also bring a sense of community, inclusive, supportive atmosphere. Improv in particular is a very supportive performance art, and we really work to welcome everyone into our community. And also Imposters Theater works to keep smart young creatives in Cleveland. So I know that, for example, when I graduated college, there wasn't really an opportunity like this in Cleveland, and perhaps if there were, I would have stayed in Cleveland a little longer to take classes and perform here in the city. So we are, as I said, we're moving in at 4828 Lorraine Avenue, and we have to get a couple of zoning variances for our business. One is regarding parking, and I've already spoken to the people at the school right here, and they are letting us use their parking lots nights and weekends, which is going to be the majority of the times we'll have events and shows and classes. So we won't add anything to any of the parking situation going on in the neighborhood. Yep, that's what that says, okay. Hours of operation, we don't have this set, but probably will be about 6 to 10 Monday, Wednesday, maybe 6 to midnight Thursday, Friday. Saturday and Sunday we'll start a little earlier. We'll have classes and workshops during the afternoon. Going off of what they were talking about with the arts for the community, we do have free improv jams that anyone can come to and participate, and we have other free activities. We're going to have comedy trivia night. We have a free open mic on Mondays. So we'll have opportunities for people in the neighborhood to come and participate for free, and we'll also have paid classes and things, but we always want to provide opportunities for people that can come for free. Majority of our operating hours would be classes, workshops, and activities, such as improv jams and comedy trivia nights. That's what I said. That's on the slide. Good. We're doing great. All right. I also wanted to say that we've been working with Ohio City Inc. since around 2019 and collaborating with them to make sure that we are working with the neighborhood and trying to add to the neighborhood and make sure we're following all the correct steps. And let's see, I wanted to talk about, I think that was all. I don't know. James, Marissa, anything? I don't know, you're in the front row. I'm putting Marissa on the spot.
I'm a neighbor. When I found out that Michael was looking to develop the theater literally around the corner from my home and from Ryan's home, I was so excited because it really is a community hub. I think there's a really diverse group of people that comes and enjoys Imposters now, and they're really looking to grow and build that community. And yeah, just diversity of programming, diversity of talent, something different every night, and I think it's going to be a huge asset to our neighborhood.
Thank you, Marissa. And I love this photo because it's a very nice photo of those lovely individuals, and then James hanging out in the corner by himself over there. I also wanted to say, just as far as capacity and what we're going to do, our space isn't that big over there. Our shows are probably going to be, capacity of maybe 40 people. We're going to have shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But again, we're not going to go super late tonight. This isn't like a late night club or anything. We will have a bar, and that will be open again just during our business hours. We're not like a full day bar or anything like that. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes. Oh, microphone.
What's the charge? What are ticket prices? What do you get? What do you got to pay to get in the door?
Ticket prices, our shows will generally be $10 to $15, and again, we'll also have some free opportunities as well.
Okay, and kind of subjects that the comedy's gonna be about? Is it local stuff, Cleveland stuff, or?
Some of that, yeah.
Some of
I mean,
it?
pretty
Okay.
much all across the spectrum. The only thing we really stay away from is we don't really invite anyone that does kind of hateful material or anything at our stage.
What about, is it local comedians or local
Yeah,
talent?
so that's, a lot of, these people right here are performers at our theater. Some of them have taken classes as well.
Okay.
And we really are building and supporting local creative community here. And we'll also bring in, from time to time, some people that are, from outside traveling through to perform and teach workshops.
So do you have a website?
We do, yes. It's imposterstheater.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, I guess I did a great job. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have the Vitrolite building updates by the Harness Collective, and presenting on their behalf is Ann Hartnett.
Good evening. I'm Ann Hartnett. Nice to see all of you here in real life and also those tuning in. I'm here to talk about the Vitrolite project by Harness Collective. I'm Ann Hartnett. On my way here with my husband, I was joking that there's a lot of ways you may know me, but most importantly, I grew up in Cleveland my whole life, Lakewood, so 1 degree of separation. There's a likelihood everyone viewing and in this room we have some connection. I've also been told my whole life that I look like someone that you know, so maybe I just look like someone you know. But we started our relationship, my husband and I, with the Ohio City neighborhood in 2010. We bought this house. Marcia Nolan, I see you in the room, our neighbor on 47th Street. This was a house that had been vacant for 5 years that we made our first home with our first child. You may know me from Harness Cycle. We're a brick and mortar business on the corner of 29th and Detroit. You may know me from starting a running group before our brick and mortar was open, running the bridge every Wednesday night. We still do it every summer if you want to join us. You may know me as the person that convinced hundreds of people over the last almost 10 years to ride a stationary bike nowhere. You may know me from an unsuccessful CNBC show called Cleveland Hustles in 2016. Please do not watch the reruns on Netflix. You may know me as someone that really believed in brick and mortar coming back during the pandemic. I partnered with Ohio City Inc. to sell these flags around the neighborhood and create a grant fund for brick and mortar businesses. They are still available for sale if you'd like to support that grant fund. Or you may know me as the person chasing Mr. Dennis, the bus driver, every morning, Monday through Friday, with my baby in a stroller and my 3 kids that go to Urban, trying to catch the bus every morning. But what I hope I can share with you tonight is what I most recently have become is a partner in Harness Collective. It's an emerging real estate development company focused on neighborhood development here in Ohio City, with hopes to continue to focus on brick and mortar businesses. Our Harness Collective leadership team is made of myself, Andrea Lochi, who's in the room today, and Katrina Keeley, who's tuning in remotely. We are one of the few 100% female-led development companies in the city. We have also become B Corp certified. I won't go into what that is today, but it's an accreditation process for for-profit businesses to meet a rigorous set of standards in their operations with community engagement, environmental, how you treat your employees, and your relationship with customers. And we are made up of whole living brands. So I have owned and operated Harness Cycle for the last 10 years. And I would say within almost the first year of operation, I started to kind of think about a parallel equity that was being built alongside me, and that was the value of the neighborhood. And I think we talk a lot about residential value increase in this neighborhood, and the shadow side of that, there's definitely value to that increase. But much like that, we're experiencing that in residential, we're experiencing that with brick and mortar in this neighborhood as well, and the cost of rent increasing. And so just a brief market study here, and this is just based on Cuyahoga County public records on tax valuation, but we've seen an average increase of 80% value increase since I first signed my lease in 2010. And I think there is a lot of value in this, but I also think there's an opportunity to start really focusing on owner-occupied buildings in the neighborhood to stabilize businesses and retain them for the future. So this is what initially started my interest in purchasing the building that we have at 2915 Detroit Ave so that we can stabilize Harness Cycle for the future and start to work with other businesses as we continue to develop on becoming owner-occupied brick and mortars. So this is the beautiful historic Vitrolite building. It's at 2915 Detroit Ave. I'm sure you've seen it as you're driving down. It's right across from the BOP stop. It has this incredible vitrolite glass tile facade, which is what makes it a historic registered building. It was first built in 1900 by the Chicago-based Vitrolite Tile Company. And what's really unique to us is, this just was by happenstance, but we really at our ethos are advocates and believers in brick and mortar business. And vitrolite glass tile, from its inception, has been used to beautify facades of brick and mortar businesses. And you can think of fountain soda shops and the Art Deco era. It has the appearance of marble, but it's glass tile. And most recently, the seller of the building was ICA, a wonderful art conservator organization. They were there for 20 years, and they've relocated to the Pivot Center just south of the highway. They were an incredible partner in getting this acquisition complete. So if you look here, this is the other side of the building. It carries all the way to Church Ave, and this is the present day vantage point. It's the building right next to Alea, right with the yellowish brick. And this is our proposed Church Ave vantage point. So adding on the door, what's currently the doorway will become a retail storefront, and just kind of bringing to life this side of Church Ave for the building as retail. Aside from Harness Cycle in this building, we have a few tenants who we refer to as building partners. I have Yolanda Rosenthal Green here today. I'll talk about her business in a second. Marie Artali, who's opening patron saint. Harness Cycle is relocating, so we've been at 2901 right on the corner. We've been closed since the start of the pandemic, and we'll be re-emerging in this building. Patron Saint is an all-day aperitivo style cafe. It's Italian inspired. It'll be in the front first floor of the Vitrolite building, which is old world. It looks like old world European. It was the tile showroom for the Vitrolite company. So very much meets her aesthetic. It'll be open early morning to early evening, really matching hours of the other operators in the building. Yolanda's opening Soul Yoga. It's on the second floor of the Vitrolite building. It will have incredible views of Lake Erie. Most importantly, this is Yolanda's first studio solely owned, and she has always worked in predominantly white affluent studios in the suburbs of Cleveland. And she's embarking on really paving a new path in the movement community as an incredible Black woman-owned business and building a team of diversity and true inclusion so that we can begin to really truly stand behind the initiatives that we all hope to have in this building and really make it a truly diverse and inclusive environment. 3 other focus points of this building will be a gathering space. A dream would be to have a meeting like this in our gathering space in an evening. Next to the gathering space will be a stay and play. So guardians need to stay in the building, but it's a drop-in childcare option for ages 3 months to age 10. We'll be wanting to survey at some point different hours that the neighborhood would feel appealing and would utilize these services. And lastly, we'll be continuing our digital offerings that we started during the pandemic and recording in the basement of the building. I'm here today also to talk to you about support for our parking variance. This historic building it does not have a lot or any parking built in. We are an existing business, and we know that predominantly Harness Cycle's clients are from the neighborhood and have a lot of walkability. We'll be adding bike storage on both the Detroit Ave side as well as the Church Ave side. Additionally, we started a partnership with the RTA pre-pandemic and plan to re-engage that strategic partnership to incentivize our employees as well as riders to use the bus route on Detroit Ave. Our proposed timeline, we will be submitting fairly soon our schematic drawings and our permit sets to the City of Cleveland's building department. From there, we'll be undergoing our construction and plan to open Harness Cycles. She's our lead architect. Yolanda Rosenthal Green, who's the owner of Soul Yoga. You guys want to stand up? And we have the Harness Collective and Harness Cycle project team back here as well. Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free. Great. I was told by Katie if I used all the time, then there wouldn't be.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you guys so much for that really great presentation. We're really excited to see what happens in that space. Next up, we have from the City Planning Commission, Matthew Moss, Manager of Strategic Initiatives, City of Cleveland.
Wow, this is great because I get to be here and see these projects, which is really wonderful. And I think I couldn't have asked for a better introduction to what I would like to talk to you all about today. So again, my name is Matt Moss. I work for the Cleveland City Planning Commission. I see some new faces, so really excited to see some people I haven't seen before, but some familiar faces too. So I'm glad to be here and glad to share some of this, some of what we've been working on with you. And I want to thank Ohio City Inc. and Tom and Nate and everyone else on the team for making it really easy for me to show up and really share some stuff we're working on. So, and I think this really ties in well with some of the stuff, some of the projects we just saw in the community. So 1 second, let me make this. I was going to try to make this full screen, but you know what? We'll just go with it. So I'm here to talk to you today. I like to try to come out as often as I can to the community, to the various communities that I work in. And so in my role at the City Planning Commission, one of the things I do is work on planning we have districts at the Planning Commission, and as planners we're assigned to work in different districts. And so my district for now includes Ohio City, Tremont, Old Brooklyn, Brooklyn Center, Clark Fulton, and Stockyards, and those neighborhoods. And so I like to try to come out as often as I can and share what we're working on, what we're thinking about, some of the new ideas that we're exploring at the City Planning Commission. And one thing we've been looking at, especially in partnership with RTA, the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission, and really at the direction under Mayor Bibb's administration, is how we can support RTA and how we can plan our city to be more transit-oriented. And I think what's really exciting, again, about some of the projects is hopefully you'll see how this ties in with some of the entrepreneurs who have been here today to talk about their projects, and hopefully we can stitch that together and it'll flow nicely. And so I put together this presentation. We presented this to the Planning Commission back in early September. Last week, the county and myself and some staff from RTA presented this to the RTA board. And one thing they told us at that meeting was they really wanted us to see this go out to the communities and get people's feedback and share this information. So it was great to be able to line all that up. So what do we mean when we talk about transit-oriented development? And so essentially what that means is just building things and locating businesses and places where that people want to get to near high-frequency transit. And so in Cleveland, high-frequency transit is transit that usually where a bus or a train arrives every 15 minutes or faster. And what we consider TOD to be is places for work, places where you can recreate or hang out, like at an improv theater, for example, or maybe a new Italian-inspired cafe, right? But also goods and services and also housing. Housing is really important. And so why are we focused on transit-oriented development, and what is that? Why is this something that we want to talk about now? And in a lot of ways, transit-oriented development is an approach, it's a strategy, it's an attitude towards development that knits together some of the other and really unifies across some of the other initiatives we have in the city of Cleveland. So we just adopted an action plan to get to Vision Zero, which is it's a worldwide effort, but in Cleveland it's also a local effort to try to get to zero fatalities and serious injuries from car crashes or crashes in general on our roadways. It helps make Cleveland more accessible. buildings that are transit oriented are generally more accessible to people who have mobility needs, but it's also it also provides better access for people who might not be able to drive, for example, like children particularly. It's more equitable. Again, they're not only people who can't drive or are not old enough to drive, but who don't have access to a car as a primary means of getting around. It helps us meet some of our climate goals. We have a climate action plan at the City of Cleveland, and we're trying to reduce carbon emissions. And one way we're trying to do that is by reducing single trips made by people alone in cars. And it also helps make Cleveland healthier. And so particulate matter is in the stuff that cars release, and really buses too in some cases, but in general, these are factors that we know increase the risk of asthma, especially in children. And so this is a strategy that cuts across all those areas. And so to really look at this and how we as the city can influence this policy, we wanted to look at, well, how transit supportive is Cleveland? And so we did this analysis for all of Cleveland's neighborhoods. I want to talk to you about Ohio City since that's your neighborhood. But basically what we did is we looked at some of the information that the Federal Transit Administration has put out to help cities understand and guide them towards transit-oriented development. And that's something that through the CARES Act, through the Inflation Reduction Act, through the infrastructure bills that have been passed over the last few years, that's something that the FTA is making money available to state and local governments to do. So there's resources available to do this. And so what we found is that, especially for a city like Cleveland, where we have these historic streetcar corridors that we now run buses on with RTA, or the fixed rail lines where the red line runs, we have the blue line and the green line out on the east side, the typical population density that the FTA has observed across the country where transit is well supported is generally between 25 and 35 units an acre. And so basically what we've done is we made some maps, and using the census data, we basically just counted the number of housing units and the amount of people that live in each census block in the city of Cleveland. So this is a map for the whole city, but you can zoom in and you can see the individual census blocks that pop up. And basically, darker blue blocks on this map are at that transit supportive density, and lower and paler, lighter blue to pale blocks are not there. So for example, if you look at the River Valley, nobody lives there, so it's gray. But if you look at downtown, we have a lot of housing downtown, so those blocks are blue. And that's some of the analysis we've started to do. Looking at Ohio City has a ton of transit options. So there's transit on Detroit, that's high frequency. There's transit on West 25th, that's high frequency. And you've got the red line stops at 25th and also 65th, almost in Ohio City on the other side, and then Lorraine. And so there's a lot of transit. In fact, about 97% of the neighborhood you're within a 5-minute walk to a high frequency bus stop, which is pretty incredible. The reality that we're seeing based on the population data, the census data that we've looked at, is right now in Ohio City there's about 6,100 housing units. But in order to reach that transit supportive density that the FTA recommends, we would need 15,000 more housing units, which is just an incredible number. So what does that mean in terms of what we're going to start talking about as a city and what we're going to start looking at? Well, one thing we look at is parking. And so this is a map here that shows pretty much every single surface parking lot in Ohio City. And how can we look at ways in which this land could be reused? And so some of this means building more parking in the sense of we have a lot of land area that parking takes up along our transit corridors. And this is something that we've looked at really county-wide in partnership with the County Planning Commission. So where can this be basically reallocated? Where can we move parking around to make land available for something else, right? Something like housing, or again, like an improv theater or something like that. And again, how can we support people to ride transit and make it easier for more of these businesses to open in neighborhoods like Ohio City? And so some of the sites we're looking at include parking lots, but also used car lots, for example. You can go out right here on Lorraine and see a few of those. There are some industrial sites, not just in Ohio City, but really across the city that are vacant and could be repurposed. But we're also looking at the stations themselves. So something that RTA is interested in is how can their transit stations also serve other uses, whether it's housing or businesses or anything else that people might might be convenient for people who are riding transit. And so we're not just looking at housing in this analysis. We have high frequency transit that serves the major employment areas in Cleveland, like downtown, and University Circle, and then the health campuses on the Cleveland Clinic, at the Cleveland Clinic. So, and University Hospitals and all that stuff. And so another piece of this is how can we incentivize, how can we work with employers in the region to make transit an attractive option for their employees to use in order to get to work. The last slide I want to share is really just, we're looking at this under a framework that is commonly known. We're calling it the 15-minute city framework. Essentially what that means is how can we plan neighborhoods in Cleveland so that pretty much everyone's basic needs or their desires are met within a 50-minute walk, bike ride, or high-frequency transit. And so we're not just looking at where stuff is located, but what is the quality of that experience as well? Is it comfortable? Is it safe? Is it desirable to hop on a bike or catch a bus or ride the train or walk? And one of those things we're looking at is again, like what are the rules and regulations that we as a city write and enforce that also make it easier for these types of neighborhoods to develop? In a lot of ways, this is how Cleveland was originally built. And so we're not necessarily inventing anything new here, but we're exploring how we can learn things that were done in the past that we can then repurpose and adapt for the needs we have now. And so, you know, for example, we had two businesses here today that were presenting their projects, and one of the things they need is a zoning variance. One of those, well, they need probably several zoning variances, but one of them is a variance for parking, and they're both on corridors that are well served by buses. So it's really easy to take a bus down Lorraine. It's really easy to take a bus down Detroit, and that's where these two projects are located, for example. And so one reason why we're looking at zoning is because some of our zoning is really restrictive. What this layer represents is where it's under our current code, it's illegal to build more than 3 units of housing. And so, you know, when we talk about density, we talk about TOD. It's really easy to think about big sites like downtown or big sites on West 25th where we can, like Intro, for example, where we can build, you know, these really big projects. But from our perspective, it also really means how can, if you're a homeowner and you want to add a unit to your house or turn your garage into an apartment, this also makes it illegal for you to do that, and it's very, very difficult. And so from our perspective, we see trying to change these rules as not just supporting that type of activity, but also making it easier for people who want to start a business to get into real estate development, like Anne, for example. How right now our rules are so complicated and difficult to navigate that it's a disincentive from people wanting to become not just business owners, but owners of their own property. And we want to support that activity. And so that's one reason why we're looking at modernizing some of these rules. And so I know it's a lot of information. I'm sure many of you have lots of questions, and I'm happy to answer them. This is just an overview. I won't read every single one of these, but what does it actually mean? So what are we actually doing with this information? And so all of what I just said is basically summed up in this one sentence. We want to align our regulatory tools to support TOD. We view some of the projects you saw today, some of the projects you've seen over the years living in this neighborhood as transit-oriented development projects. We want the Harness Collective to be transit-oriented. And you know, Anne herself mentioned that she's working with RTA to support her employees taking transit. That's wonderful. We want small businesses like an improv theater to be transit-oriented as much as it can be. We want to look at prioritizing city financial support for investments that increase walking, biking, and transit use. So what does that mean? Well, if someone comes to the city and says, I really want a loan, or I really want some help financing my project, instead of the requirement being that you build parking, for example, we would love to talk about how you can make the bus stop better, how you can offer transit passes to your employees or your residents, that kind of thing. That kind of practice, that kind of approach is broadly known as transportation demand management, which is a really fancy planning term. But basically what it means is instead of requiring parking, how can we require other things that get people to use other means to get around? So walking, biking, transit, scooters even, all of that stuff. And so we're also going to continue to partner with the county and talk to our surrounding communities, because our transit doesn't just connect Cleveland neighborhoods to each other, it connects Cleveland to our surrounding communities. And so we want to make sure that this is a regional conversation. So I know it's a ton of information. We're going to have more conversations about this. This is by no means the end of anything. It's simply another step in how we're looking at our policies and our rules and regulations and how they help support neighborhoods like Ohio City. So with that, I'll answer any questions. Yeah, we got a microphone.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
First of all, one of the problems I see with this is that the transit all goes downtown. So if you have somebody in Ohio City that lives near Lorraine and they want to go someplace on Detroit, they have to, if they were going to go on transit, they'd have to take a bus down Lorraine, a bus down 25th, and a bus down Detroit. I mean, assuming they didn't have the energy to walk. But it seems that if you want to have transit-oriented development, you need to have transit connecting people where they want to go. When one of the bridges was out, they had a loop bus that went from the West Side Market over to Max Hayes. It went back, and I mean, it seems like if there was a loop through Ohio City that went down 25th to 65th and back up Lorraine, then maybe you'd have people that would ride a bus. But now there's a lot of places where people want to go where the buses, it's not very convenient to go on the bus or the rapid. So that's one question. And then I had a second question, but maybe you could respond to that first.
I can certainly try. First of all, I totally agree with you. I have that same frustration myself just in my personal life because I don't own a car. I get around on my bike, namely, and that does make it easy for me to sort of cut through the neighborhood. But when I do ride the bus, it is a challenge. And that's partly why we're trying to take this approach, especially on those corridors where we have like Lorraine, Detroit, but also on the east side like Kinsman or Union and Shaker Square, for example, because there's just so much land along these areas that are uses that are either vacant or just aren't transit supportive. Like they are not places people want to get to. Sometimes even if you had a car, there's just nothing there. One thing the county found when they did an analysis of all of the land along these major transit corridors that RTA has, and roughly it was actually over a quarter of the land along these high frequency transit routes was a parking lot or some other paved vacant use. And so in order for RTA and the city and the county to work together to try to provide more options like that, we need more of those land uses to be stuff that people want to get to or come from, right? So whether it's a home or a business. And so that's what we're working on now because we want to be able to do that in the future.
Then my second question is that if you build more high density buildings along Detroit and Lorraine, then there's an impact on climate change in that you're taking properties that maybe had trees or grass and turning them into something that's concrete. And so I just worry about that as well.
Yeah, that's a totally valid concern. And again, that's why our priority is going to be on those paved surfaces that right now aren't that exactly. And so when it comes to prioritizing where we see development sites, we want to work with CDCs, with city council members, with communities to figure out, okay, where are your priorities? And that's where we can work together to try to market those sites as our top locations for that kind of use. But again, it's also, we want to, those large projects do take a lot of time and energy and attention and are worthy of scrutiny, but we also want to try to unlock the ability for property owners, homeowners, to be able to add another unit or two to their property, which individually doesn't do much in terms of the total units in a neighborhood, for example, but adds up over the long term to a critical mass, and also creates diversity in terms of options for people who are looking for housing in neighborhoods like this one.
Thanks.
Thank you for your questions. I saw a few other hands. Yeah, come on up. I'm happy to stick around too if you don't want to talk into a mic and you want to come ask me afterwards.
I've worked in development with CDCs and banks my entire career, and I'm usually pro-development. But I think Ohio City has reached its capacity for density.
Okay.
I hadn't been over to Battery Park in probably a year. And when I got over there, I was shocked at how dense it was. And people were lined up in their cars trying to get out of the neighborhood to do their shopping. RTA used to have neighborhood circulators, which were basically little buses that went around like that lady was talking about. That's a huge need, and I think in Ohio City, we should, and probably Tremont, we probably should have 2 neighborhood circulators because a lot of people live and work here. But yeah. I'm a little tired of hearing about density. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't work for RTA, so I can't speak to what they can or can't do, but we do more people riding transit in order to be able to provide more options like that.
Does RTA include daytime population in its equation?
Yes.
They do. Oh, okay, because there is a significant daytime population in this school and St. Ignatius that if were it served, and it's served almost entirely by vehicle,
Yeah.
motor vehicle, and it's if if you wanted to organize around there, but closer to home, the RTA, the nearest RTA bus stop is right outside Tom Gill's office, and for some reason, for a number of years now, we have not been able to find a place for the kids to board the bus at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. My suggestion has been right there where it sits all night and it can be plugged in, preheated electrically, solarly. For some reason that isn't happening. It is a common sight for me to see the bus idling on a fair weather day and a parent and their kid standing downwind about 20 feet from that tailpipe.
Yeah.
So I'm all for RTA, but that and the Mashkey shelters over at West 65 and
Yeah,
Detroit,
those are gone.
I mean, and that was city planning. Mashkey was with the city, wasn't it with the city planning commission for a minute?
I think landmarks, but yeah, you're not off. You're not far off.
I mean, those two pictures,
Yeah. Well, and so that's one thing we want to do instead of requiring. Right now, we require people to build a lot of parking. It'd be really great to work with property owners to build heated bus shelters. That's an idea that's come up that we want to do, which would certainly make it more comfortable when you're waiting out for the bus in the wintertime. But yeah, I totally hear you. It's been my experience too.
Hi, Matt. I'm Bill Merriman from Church Avenue. I live across from the
Hey, Bill.
Vitriolite building. And I agree with Marcia that there seems to be a limit that we're going to have to watch out for. A few months ago, we had an introduction to the future use of those new structures on the northwest corner of 28th and Church.
Yeah.
Metallic. And the person developing the sub-businesses, hi, puppy, was saying that, yeah, there isn't quite enough parking in the immediate area for those retail operations all the time, so that people will have to park a few blocks farther into the neighborhood. But as they walk along, they can purchase or do some shopping at small businesses along the way, which meant for more small businesses along the way, there would have to be fewer and fewer houses. I think it actually works against the residential community under certain circumstances, and I think we're looking at one of those circumstances. This past weekend was exceptional. There's a big concert downtown, but people were walking in 3/4 of a mile. And this isn't the end of it. This is not the end of it. 3/4 of a mile for something that, well, the neighborhood is becoming an adjunct to Nautica and the other entertainment venues in the neighborhood. It gets to a point where our neighbors deserve that we don't own the spot in front of our house, but we do deserve to have a place where someone can arrive at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and walk to the front door safely without having to walk a half or 3/4 of a mile through the neighborhood, because those spaces are taken up bumper to bumper, and we all saw it this weekend. 3/4 of a mile or more, bumper to bumper cars belonging to people from Strongsville, Rocky River, Westlake. God bless them, and we need the business, and we want to share the neighborhood with them. But city planning has not answered the question in terms of where to put these cars, since the business has been relieved of an obligation to provide off-street parking. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks for your comment.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, Priscilla.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. So I am a transit rider. I ride every day, so I really appreciate your presentation and then what we're doing to have more development along transit lines, because I think we need more people to ride transit. Along those lines, you mentioned ways that private development or property owners can pay for better transit infrastructure, like heated bus stops. What else are you thinking? Because I think that's a really great idea, and I want to hear more about how our transit stops and transit in general can be improved.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So we're working on a project. The short answer to your question is one thing that we've done that's been really great in partnership with, the short answer is we have a menu of options, and this is a best practice we've observed in other cities. And I'd be happy to share that menu with you and get your perspective on it. We want it to be something that we can sort of publish soon. Right now, we're trying to pilot it with a few projects that are currently underway in the city. There's a project in University Circle called Stokes West that's over by Euclid. It's on Stokes Boulevard. So we're talking to them, for example, and they're really supportive of some of these options. And we want to get some feedback on that before we have a final list. But the longer answer is that it's something that we've seen other cities do. So one thing that's been really great about the collaboration with the county is they've organized peer conversations with cities like Denver, Pittsburgh, Minneapolis. We talked to Raleigh in North Carolina, and we've learned from these other cities what they've done in terms of swapping out sort of these rules, right? So in some cases, it's not just instead of parking, you do these rules. Sometimes it's like in addition to parking, you do these rules. And so we're looking at things like providing subsidized or free transit passes. That's a really popular one now, especially since there's a lot of data and other experiences from other cities that shows that really encourages transit ridership when it's just really accessible and free to just hop on a bus or hop on a train. Looking at where bike infrastructure is created. So projects that include dedicated bike storage rooms, provide bike facilities where you can fix a flat or swap a tire out for those who have that knowledge and experience, but also even providing bikes available to tenants when they're in a building. And it's not just residential. I mean, that's a really easy example, especially someone like me to think of because I work on a lot of residential projects, but these would apply to like an employer as well. So it would incentivize or in some cases require an employer to provide a fleet of bicycles for their employees to use on a trip around the neighborhood, or if they wanted to go to a meeting or to go have lunch somewhere or something like that. And there's a whole other list of options that I don't have memorized, unfortunately, but some of the other things, so it would also be like improving a transit environment or even like making a physical change to the street. So one thing that I'm sure many of you might be familiar with is in a lot of cases, we try to work with developers when they're doing a bigger project to make some improvements to the streetscape. So that might be planting trees if there aren't trees there. It might also be putting in a bike lane that the city is maybe planning to do but can't do for a few years because of the way we finance roads. So it could also be improvements like that. And the goal would be to try to require different options in different categories for transit riders, for bike riders, for streetscape, or it might even be like putting in a curb ramp, something simple like that where we don't have a ramp that's available, or we don't have a ramp in yet, and we might have a plan or a desire to put one in, but here comes a project and a developer wants to build. That might be an option on the menu too, for example. So we want to try to categorize it by transit, by biking, by people who walk or use a mobility device or something like that to get around. And so that's sort of, I could talk forever about this, but that's sort of the things we're looking at. So I hope that satisfies you for now. Sure. Sure, yeah.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I work downtown. I take the bus when I work downtown because I travel for work, or I bike or I walk. I love transit in a very weird way, but not everybody works downtown and not everybody lives in the 15-minute city.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to live next to a quad or a double family house. So I always have mixed feelings, and you can call me what you want, but I have very mixed feelings on it. But are you guys working with the suburbs for jobs that most young professionals are usually offered first? Because tech is taking a very long time to show up with the big things. Sherwin-Williams is building a multi-deck parking garage downtown, which I think many people are upset about. It could be used as green roof. I know they have a sustainability division in their engineering department. I don't know if the city is working on any of that with them, and I know a lot of people think the city moves slow. So,
yeah, me too.
And more protected bike lanes, please, because it's scary to bike on Detroit, and Lorraine is just a mess. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. There wasn't a question there, but I can certainly respond to it. Not that that's a problem. But if you want to ask a question, I want to give you the opportunity.
The question is, are you guys partnering with suburb companies to maybe do like a carpooling? I worked in Nevada for some startup projects that I've had out there, and they'll have carpooling vans. So working with some of the apartment complexes in the area, because right now you've got St. Ignatius, you've got Urban, you've got other schools that have commuter people that come in, and it's, excuse my language, but it's a bitch and a half to get to 90. So I have like 5 ways to get to 90 or 490 to get myself to Pittsburgh right now for a startup I'm on. And I don't think I'm for density in certain ways, but I think at this point, if we continue where we're at, no one's gonna get out, and no one's gonna wanna live here, and we're just gonna end up with a bunch of short-term rentals. So, I guess, are you guys working on stuff where you can work with people that just don't work in this neighborhood, in the 15-minute city bubble?
Yeah.
Working with the Swage Locks, CCL just is making their headquarters out in Strongsville. Great Lakes has their bottling facility out in Strongsville. Right. There's a bunch of Twinsburg companies that are always looking for people, and not that I want all the people my age moving out there, but you still got to connect them. And maybe you can say, hey, you should also open a subsidiary in the city.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
A co-working place. So I don't know if that's something you guys are working on, or if it's just not something that has been thought of.
Yeah, so we're definitely thinking about it. There's a lot to unpack there, and I think the best I could do in this short time, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it some more too, is it's really easy, relatively speaking, for like Cleveland to right size or reshape its land use policy. It's much, much harder to, as a region, because our economy is so sprawled out over the last 50 or so years, for the city itself to shape that policy. And what is exciting and inspiring to me about this right now is the collaboration we have with the county and with RTA. And every single suburb we've spoken to so far, we've had one working session with almost, not all the suburbs, but roughly about half of them in the county. They all, 100% of them, these were mayors, they were planning directors, they were council members in these communities. 100% of them said they were totally interested in this and wanted to learn more. And so we're starting to have that conversation. We're starting down this path of hopefully more regional collaboration around those things.
A good example would be like Sherwin. We have BTC moving out to Brecksville, and the 77 bus is not very efficient, at least for anyone of my level, or even like most people are going to be like, no. I'm just going to get in my car from downtown. I'm going to drive to BTC or a robotics lab in Parma. So. And
so we're trying to make these other modes that we call them. It's right now we've been, as a society, been so invested in making it really easy and convenient to get around in a car. We're trying to turn that ship, so to speak, and say, how can we make it more convenient, easier, knowing the limitations of taking the bus, that the bus, you might not know when it's coming. It might be raining when you're waiting at the stop. Like these other things that we can influence, that's where we're starting. And at the same time, trying to lead and having this conversation with the surrounding communities.
Last question.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to do the Lorraine bike track?
Yeah, I can't talk about that right now, but I feel ya. As a bike rider, I feel ya. Me too. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Right on. Sorry, Matt and I talk about Lorraine enough most days. But I want to take a moment here to thank all of you for coming out tonight. Grateful for you coming and sharing your evening with us. I also want to thank our board of directors. I think I've seen many of you here tonight. Chrissy Wells, Laurel Mittner, Gigi Benjamin was here, Alex Frondorf. Again, thank you guys for coming out and supporting this. Also want to thank our presenters tonight, Michael Bush from Imposters Theater, Ann Hartnett for the Vitrolite Project. Yes, thank you guys, and so along with those projects, right? So Ann Hartnett's project in the Vitrolite building will be going on our online engagement platform, Co-Urbanize, right? As a way to continue to gather feedback, right? That is really a redevelopment with a lot of different things going on, and so want to make sure everyone is aware of what is going on. And then as things like variances come up, right, we'll be notifying the community so that you can weigh in on those. And with that in mind, right, we are sitting here in a 200-plus-year-old city with 100-year-old buildings that people are moving into, all of which need parking variances, right? And there's not going to be a cloud that shows up to park cars in. And so grateful for Matt Moss and the city to come in here and talk about it, because we want those buildings filled, right? And we want great new businesses coming into them. And so we are trying to work with the city on comprehensive solutions for ways to manage things that are going on in the neighborhood. But again, we'll make sure that you're aware as the process moves forward for those. And then also want to take a minute to thank Jackson Brown, our community outreach manager, for organizing this tonight, Katie Bombach for helping pull everything together from an AV perspective. Again, please feel free to stick around, engage with Matt in the back, give us your feedback on the types of programming that you'd like to see in the community, and we'd love to see you back here in October. We got Nate Lull, who does a lot of work with the folks who are doing things here tonight and also helping out with a lot of the AV, so thank you, Nate. But again, would love to get more feedback from you guys on the types of programming that you want to see in the community, and please join us back here in October. Again, we'll have Jessica Trevisano talking about the future of the West Side Market and that transition, which is incredibly exciting. And with that, thank you guys. Have a great night. Please remember to vote. Make sure you register to vote. I think we got 22 days to register to vote. Thank you so much. Good night.